Welcome back to the Phoenix Project. I'm Jennifer Chandler. This is a space where we have honest conversations about trauma, coercive control, exploitation, survival, and what it really takes to rebuild a life after experiences that were never meant to define us. Today's conversation is a deeply important one because we're talking about something that so many survivors struggle with, often silently: identity. Who are you after trauma? Who are you when so much of your life has been shaped by survival? How do you reconnect with your body, your voice, your boundaries, your sexuality, and your sense of self? These are not easy questions. They are layered. They are deeply personal, and they deserve compassionate, trauma-informed answers. Today, I'm joined by Wendy Haggerty, a licensed marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, an ASECT certified sex therapist and supervisor, and co-founder of mindmood.com. She is also someone who has spent years helping individuals and couples reclaim connection, intimacy, and wholeness after trauma. Wendy, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, Jennifer, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here and being part of this very important conversation.
Absolutely. Well, it means a lot to me. I'm really grateful for this conversation. I think that it's going to help a lot of people put words to things that they've been feeling for a long time. To start us off, can you share a little bit about your background and what shaped your perspective on survivor recovery?
Absolutely. So my journey really began a long time ago with just such a deep curiosity about how relationships and sexuality shape one another and shape our sense of self. I became a licensed therapist and I specialized in clinical sexology. And then I trained in trauma-informed approaches like IFS, some hypnotherapy, imago therapy, systemic sex therapy. I also taught human sexuality at the university grad level. And so we had a lot of really deep conversations about exploitation, coercion, and then the performance-based intimacy that was created out of that often for those involved, and how that really eroded people's sense of wholeness. And over the past 15 plus years, I've worked with many survivors of sexual trauma, people healing from all kinds of relational struggles and traumatic experiences. And those individuals transitioning through from what I often call like a performance-based style of work
Right.
into intimacy and being seen and being vulnerable in a fuller sense of wholeness.
Mm.
So what continues to shape me is that witnessing of others and seeing them and watching them. I'm honored to be a part of their journey. So it's not as much what the story of what was done to them, but who they are, who their souls are. There's so much beautifulness and incredibly powerful healing done in our treatment room. So
Absolutely. I love that. Not that what was done to them, because I think so many survivors have been reduced to that for so long. What happened to them, what they had to do to survive. And I think a lot of people get stuck in the story of what happened to them rather than looking at all the pieces of the story and self-reflecting. And what you're describing is something very different. It's the restoration of who they actually are. And that's beautiful. So I want to talk about how can exploitation impact someone's sense of identity?
Yeah, and just to reflect on what you just said, Jennifer, as
Mm-hmm.
well, that movement from, I would call it like moving through surviving, which is lifelong, of course, but really into like a sense of thriving.
Mm-hmm.
When someone has gone through exploitation and trauma, their identity is often, this becomes performance based
Mm-hmm.
and ingenuous. They've got to survive, and so
Mm-hmm.
their self becomes fragmented. They can disassociate, they can people please. They often, when they get into treatment and they start talking about it, there's tremendous shame associated with some of their past, even though they understand it from intellectually as maybe not their fault.
Right.
They need to release that. We release a lot of shame in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking to help in terms of reclaiming that sense of identity and that authentic core, getting that back, bring it out if it's been buried or even lost. A lot of clients say things like, I don't even know who I am. I was this role that I've been
Right.
forced to play for so long, which is super disconnecting from their bodies, their emotions, their sense of worth.
Mm-hmm.
So what's important is that to remember that the identity isn't destroyed. They're who they are at a soul level. It's still there. It just needs the safety. It needs the space to bring it back full front forward.
Right. And I think that distinction is so important because I think a lot of survivors genuinely believe that they're broken beyond repair. But what
Mm,
you're saying is they're not broken, they're disconnected.
absolutely.
What challenges come up when survivors start rebuilding their identity?
Big question. There's so many layers to that. I, we see a lot of grief. There's some holding on maybe to the version of themselves that had to exist in order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So we're saying goodbye to parts that have been, such a strong aspect of self sometimes. And there's also a lot of internalized stigma. So we are asking questions, who are you now? What does it mean to be you? Survivors ask themselves, am I lovable? Am I
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Right.
And then there's learning to trust in oneself, that inner voice, as
Mm.
well as the voice that they speak. It's like trauma takes that away, or exploitation takes that away. They have learned to not even listen to their voice because they've been overridden for so long.
Right.
So depending on where people are at on a very practical level, it can look like really rebuilding routine,
Mm.
letting go of some of the coping patterns that once helped someone get through, integrating parts of self, helping that feeling of maybe being numb dissipate, or being hypervigilant let go. And for many people, there's just this deeper question of, yeah, like, who am I now? Who
Right.
am I?
Right. Right.
And it's not linear, but it's a conversation, and it's a journey that, again, I'll just say I'm so blessed to share in it. I really love that, the work that I'm able to do.
It's a beautiful thing, especially when, you see the impact and the changes happening with the people that you're helping. It's healing is not linear, you know. I always say it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. And, it's such a blessing when you have supportive people along your journey.
Yes.
That what you said about grief, yeah, I can really identify with that because those survival responses protected you at one point, but later they can feel confusing and shameful when you're trying to move forward. And I know even for myself, the persona that was created at that time, she was some of the things that I feel that I am not, like super confident, super brave, super, walk into any room. And in real life, I'm not like that. So I get the grief aspect of it, because for a while I didn't understand that that's what I was feeling for that part of me. And I have to figure out, and I'm working on that, is incorporating, those good parts to who I am now.
Good. I was going to say that. Please do. There are a lot of good parts.
Yes, yes. So another question, how can coercion or exploitation impact someone's relationship with sexuality? And I think before you answer that, I think when I say coercion and exploitation, I think this would also apply to, people who are in domestic violence situations and, being controlled and things like that, because this can really happen in any relationship.
Absolutely. And people get very good at acting. Their nervous
Absolutely.
system is just wired, right? So they sexuality isn't theirs. It's not their own.
Right.
Even at a more extreme level, it equals danger, survival,
Mm-hmm.
obligation,
Mm-hmm.
duty. So it can show up in different ways. Certainly, many people will continue to have experiences of disassociating during intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
So we work real slow there
Right.
and help people through that. So, we the falling back into that performance and what others are expecting of them, it's a trauma response if they go that direction, or other people might just avoid and shut down entirely.
Right.
I often say to people, that whatever, if they're if sexuality was an area that was negatively impacted, taken from someone, the biggest screw you, F you, whatever you want to say, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what we can say on here, and reclaiming is to have that part be yours and be anything and everything you want it to be so beautiful, so vibrant, and so, at will. So it's taking back that life, or that part of life, and that conditioned part. Boundaries too can feel kind of confusing. So
Absolutely.
listening to mind, body, and getting congruent in that, so that the mind doesn't override the body. If the body cues no, in the past where it wasn't safe to say no,
Right.
we want the body to be paid attention to and the mind to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, everything's integrated: mind, body, spirit, heart, all. And our body holds a lot. It certainly can hold that trauma, but it can also hold the wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So with the right support, with the right work, it is absolutely very possible to relearn sexuality in a positive way, in a safe way, reconnect with authentic pleasure, like that deep yes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I
Yeah,
choose that.
that's beautiful. I'm really glad that you said that, because I think this is where a lot of confusion and shame lives for survivors. Their responses don't always make sense, even to themselves. But those responses were learned for survival.
Right.
What does healthy sexual identity rebuilding actually look like?
Hmm. Another great question. It's so personal. It's so unique. I'll try to make some generalities. For sure, moving from that performance mindset or that survival mindset to being present and being in pleasure
Mhm.
instead of like the focus on how the other person is doing, how it appears. One can learn to really focus internally and feel in the body, really feel the pleasure in the body, reconnecting with a person's own desires, their own yes, their own no, of course. And I often say this, we need to say a lot of no's, like a
Mm.
lot of no's without guilt.
Yeah.
No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no, thank you. And then, and only then do we really know that our yeses are meaningful when we feel absolutely safe with no shame or guilt in expressing our no's.
Mm.
And that kind of goes into the consent piece we explore consent as a really, really, really front forward, ongoing, continuous conversation. It's not a one time agreement just because we're in relationship, just because we did XYZ in the past. It's just a continuous conversation. And partnered work is great if someone's in relationship here that they can have a significant other or
Right.
partner help with that process.
Mm.
And so we look at consent, we absolutely look at pleasure, really reframing pleasure as a birthright, as something so personal and so important for oneself.
Mm.
So it's a lot of somatics in the body work and mindfulness, which is kind of attention to the body and attention to what is going on, what we're participating in.
Mm.
There are so many different therapeutic ways in which people can be healed and helped. I don't think it's a one size
Right.
fits all.
Right.
I like to empower those that I work with to guide the process. So I'm kind of got a nice suitcase full of ways in which I can help. And yet I listen carefully and I stay in my curiosity and I let the others, the people that I work with really know that they are in charge. They are at choice. They're
Mm.
driving the work.
Yeah. I think what
Um,
you said.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to go back to that beginning to that performance based,
Mhm.
kind of getting back to your question. Like healthy sexuality is not performance based.
Right.
It's not. We don't perform for that. That's what people get paid for that.
Right.
we, or they should be. When we are enjoying our own sexuality and we are strong and have that identity to ourselves in that way, we are all about presence. We are all about our own pleasure. We are in good communication with our partners on that. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go back to what you said about the no's, saying a lot of no's. And I think, we talked about this in episode 5. Saying no is so difficult for women sometimes. We're so trained to be appeasable to everyone. So even when it comes down to things like our own sexuality, we still think that we have to please everyone else and that we're not entitled to certain things or entitled to feel certain ways. And I think, a lot of self-reflection and, just beginning to recognize patterns, whether it's in other people or ourselves, recognizing patterns. Hey, I'm saying yes when I really want to be saying no, and being conscious of it. That's really, to me, the first step.
Right. And I like to remind people in that regard, if our first inclination is a yes, maybe it's a very conditioned way over time that we've learned to survive slash just respond in
Right.
general.
Right.
Uh, And so that yes cannot be true, and we can correct it. So
Right.
just because we said yes doesn't mean we can't say, "Oh, wait, hold up. And,
Exactly.
let me breathe for a minute." And I think that's a no. And maybe there's something else I have a yes for, but that honoring the no's has to be part of the journey.
Mhm. And that leads us right into my next question would be what challenges do you see that come up for people transitioning from performance-based sexuality into personal intimacy?
Well, it's the journey. Once again, it
Mhm.
takes a lot of effort, bravery, courage. It it's wonderful if there's good people that help along the way, and I mean that from a support therapeutically or group work or anything like that, as well as partners, people that
Mhm.
we choose to engage with that are safe and supportive of that. And we will likely fall back into performance.
Mm.
It is just so conditioned in us. And I say us, I'm putting that out there as like an even more general feeling, survivors for sure. And I would say women often can just relate to this performance
Mhm.
concept in a general sense, whether they relate to being a survivor or not.
Exactly.
So it can be really difficult, and there's no script or one way to move through it. I it's not linear. Triggers can come up. We can be good for a while. Good, 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 good. And then a certain look, a certain touch, like a specific act
Mhm.
can bring about like a PTSD or a memory, a trigger.
Right.
So being able to have that understanding with any partners that they might be also aware to watch for that
Mhm.
and notice a shift, the small shifts in response,
Mhm.
so that we don't, get into, okay, I've just gone into a disassociated state. I've compartmentalized in order to survive, and here I go again.
Right.
We want to keep working that our way out of that, and also just some really good self worth work
Mhm.
when we've learned along our path that our worth, we are validated for what we do for others, how we perform, maybe how marketable we are.
Right.
That is a lot of conditioning.
Yeah.
So what we look like, what we do for others, how much money people can make off of us if that's part of the scenario.
Mhm.
And we have to undo all of that and redefine our own sense of self-worth.
I think that that gives language to something a lot of people have experienced, but maybe never felt safe enough to say out loud.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
think how can survivors reconnect with boundaries and preferences?
Mm, yeah. It's like learning again or anew or for the first time ever, maybe, in
Mhm.
terms of preferences and what someone can say yes to authentically, and boundaries is where the no's are, or the maybe.
Uh-huh.
We start really, really slow, often with good body awareness, maybe some yes, no, maybe exercises,
Mhm.
and body, like breath work or body awareness cues.
Right.
And we want to start with like really low stakes situations. So there's a therapeutic intervention called sensate focus,
Mhm.
which is like a progressive way of using body and sensations
Mm.
uh, to kind of connect with ourselves. And if we're doing that with a partner, we could do that ourselves, or we could do that with a partner. And it's super slow. So the biggest thing, how
Yeah.
do they reconnect? They slow it all down,
Yeah.
and we take our time.
Okay.
And, other things, people can do group work. They can do journaling, reflections, parts work. Internal family systems is a therapeutic approach I use, where we kind of like look at all the parts that have operated for us. There's a lot of protective parts with survivors, a lot of protective parts that they were needed.
Right.
They were absolutely needed, and they hopefully are not needed, and certainly not at the level that they were once needed. So
Exactly.
we're letting them, rest
Mm-hmm.
those protective parts. And over time, people get more confident. They are able to understand. To know thyself is like, it's such a wonderful part of the journey, to get to explore our own self, our own bodies, our own yes, no's, maybes. And
Right.
then once we've got them, we know them. When we say, hey, I'd like to share some of my yeses with you, whoever you are, that's beautiful. That's sacred.
Yeah. That's great. Your no is sacred. That's
And your
powerful.
and your yes,
Yeah.
both your yes and your no's are both sacred.
Right.
When they're going to be honored and respected, and not challenged and not gaslit and not anything. It's really
Exactly.
wonderful.
Exactly. Well, my final question, Wendy. What would you want a survivor listening right now to hear?
Mm. Mm. I would want anyone to know that your story is yours, your body, your desires, and you are not damaged. You are whole. You are sacred.
Mm,
You survived because you are so strong. And now, with safety, you can experience some softness, some connection, your pleasure on your terms. And the shame, we're going to release that. It does not get the final or say. You
right.
do.
Okay.
And if you're just at the beginning stage and you don't know what it's like to feel safe, just notice the small moments where you are peaceful. Your body is not on high alert. You are safe. That matters. You need to, look for those small moments. And
Mm,
you're not alone. There are so many people here to listen to your story, to support you on that whole journey back to you.
mm,
You, the beautiful you, spirit of you, powerful one.
right. Ah, Wendy, thank you so much. Truly. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate the conversation today. I think it's very eye-opening and hopefully, it resonates with the people listening. And I really believe it will. Well,
Thank you.
absolutely. If this episode resonated with you, healing does not have to happen all at once, and it does not have to happen alone. If you are rebuilding after coercion, exploitation, abuse, or trauma, there is nothing weak about moving slowly, nothing shameful about needing support, and nothing broken about learning yourself again. This is the Phoenix Project, where we are turning pain into purpose, one step at a time. If you need support or want to reach out, you can contact me directly at phoenixprojectvoices@gmail.com. Thank you for being here with us for this episode of the Phoenix Project. If this conversation spoke to you, please share it with someone who may need it. Follow the show and leave a review to help more survivors find these stories and resources. And as always, your story matters, your voice matters, and your healing matters.